本当？見えないでしょ？どこにいるのかな？見えないよ。What's good, Internet? It's Friday, April 31st. 30 days past September. April, no, it's May 1st. It's May 1st. No. We're in Meltdown May. I'm already melting down.
Oh, shit.
What? It's tomorrow, Cado. We're recording this today when it comes out tomorrow.
I was like, today's the 30th. What's going on?
No, today is the 30th, but tomorrow, Meltdown May begins. And it's going to be a hell of a Meltdown May this year, I believe. I believe in my heart that we are going to see some true winners and losers out there in the world in May. People who are really showing their asses.
Of Twitter in one day.
Yeah. We're definitely going to have three main characters on Twitter for sure all through May. I hope you're looking forward to that. I'm Austin Walker. That's the voice of Ricardo Contreras. Also joining us, Rob Zachney.
How's it going, everybody?
How's it going, Rob? How you doing?
Just enjoying this gray, rainy day.
Yeah.
Got a little jazz music playing, watching the rain come down. Just puts me in full cyberpunk mood, really.
Yeah. I look out there, I see the rain, I see the clouds, and I think it'd be cool to drive a car around in that. We're really just jumping right into it today. We're talking about Cloudpunk, video game.
I thought you were making an Elon Musk reference.
Wait, why?
Did you not see his...
The true spirit of cyberpunk does not live within that piece of shit.
No.
His fucking
you see
Twitter
he fucking
icon?
made... Yeah, Did you see it, Rob?
Yeah,
Okay,
I did.
okay.
Like, not happy about it.
I was thinking about this morning. So, for people who don't know, Elon Musk made his... For people who don't know, Elon Musk is a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Elon Musk, who 3 months ago was like, this is all fake. This is all fake. Go outside. It's all fake. It's bullshit. I bet you no one's going to die. This will be gone by April. And now is like, reopen the country. Freedom. It was yelled from inside of his billionaire mansion. Yeah. Very easy to do. The thing that struck me today about it is, so he made his Twitter icon, the Deus Ex logo, or the Deus Ex like cover art, basically the JC Denton looking up into the sky with like the city behind him. Great cover art. The thing that struck me about Elon Musk is that maybe it's good to have people in life who like the shit that you like, who are shitty, because it's a good way to break yourself of the notion that you are the shit that you like, and that is enough for someone to be a good person, or like to be someone you want to spend time with.
Yeah, that's true. This is the closer to home version of like, yeah, I'm a gamer.
Yeah, exactly. Like, that's exactly right.
This is a little closer to where I live, and it's like, oh, you and I both probably enjoyed that a lot. But I could read it, and you couldn't.
He's out here. He's
like Bob Page. That guy rules.
That guy fucking rules. That guy rules. Okay. God. He's out here like wishing that there were 13 levels of conspiracy that he could be part of. Anyway, Cloudpunk is the cyberpunk game that Rob was gesturing at, I believe, looking out of the clouds. Was I doing a good read there,
Yeah,
Rob?
but wouldn't it be great if it turns out I've just been playing the Blade Runner adventure game, low-key?
That'd be great. We can talk about that.
That'd be a fun twist.
That game's great. I'm good. Let's talk about it. I love how the changes who the replicants are every time you play that game. Not every time you launch it, but every new game like shuffles who a replicant is and shuffles some details of the
appear in that game though.
Really? I've seen that scene. I don't know that I've ever seen it in my own gameplay like session. Maybe I've only looked up video or like seen it in Let's Plays. But yeah, she's in there. Her voice is there. Like who else? There's 2 other people. It's God, what are their names? Why am I blanking on 2 other key characters?
Rutger Hauer
no, he did not.
How did you not get Rutger Hauer? Like, because that guy took checks
in that era too, in that early to mid '90s era. Yeah. God, what is the name of the actor who plays the dude? Emmett Walsh. No, not Emmett Walsh, because he plays Brian. No, who the fuck plays? Why am I blanking on what's his name? The J.F. Sebastian. J.F. Sebastian.
Oh yeah. He's great.
And then James Hong is also in it, who plays the eyes guy, I believe. Both of them make a
yes. There's an entire scene with it's as uncomfortable in the adventure game as it is in the movie, where it's like, this is an unholy space. I don't like it.
I don't like this at all. James Sebastian, played by
William Sanderson.
Great voice, great actor.
Okay, so
love him in that episode of the Batman animated series where he's just playing J.F. Sebastian again.
Yeah, this is the thing, though, right?
Oh, I love him in Deadwood. He's incredible in Deadwood.
This is what I mean.
Right.
Oh my god, that entire is like soliloquy as he tries to wash the blood out of the floor of his hotel, and just like one takes it. It's like, God, you're so fucking good at reading this.
Yes, absolutely. But
incredible
also, work.
I think it's really ironic that in Blade Runner he's like, I age prematurely, and he was that age forever after that.
That was it. Like, he's locked in.
Yeah, that like William Sanderson hit that level of development and is just like that now forever.
That's how. Yeah, that
Damn,
was
his official press shot is good.
Where is it?
Oh wait,
the version I
see. Indians logo on it. That's not a great.
That's not great. The version of it that I just saw on his Wikipedia is him holding a book with his face on it that says, "Yes, I'm that guy," which is very funny. It's a great name for a Hollywood actor to name his book. Incredible. In fact, it's the subtitle is "The Rough and Tumble Life of a Character Actor." Extremely good. All right.
Love to remember some guys.
I love it. Hey, it's that guy. Love it. Love it to remember. So Cloudpunk is a game that just came out. I believe it's available now on PC. I don't think it's come out anywhere else. That I definitely was like. I had never actually played it. I know some people had played it at one of the PAXs and really had good feelings about it. In my mind, I'd slotted it in a certain category of game. The pitch that I knew is that you are in a big cyberpunk floating city that's floating in the clouds and has multiple kind of tiers, and that you are piloting or driving a sort of. In my mind, I thought it was a taxi cab. I think it's because if I look at the art, there's a taxi cab in it. Now that I look at like the official promotional art, but you're driving for a courier service actually, and you're going around making deliveries. And in my mind, I was putting it in the category of something like Neo Cab, which obviously is another cyberpunk cab game. Or Diaries of a Spaceport Janitor, which is very simulation-ist in the sense that, like, there are days of the week and objectives that are kind of about doing a job. There's like a core gameplay loop that's around like that's systems heavy, and then there's narrative stuff throughout, right? And instead, I think it's a lot more fair to call it an adventure game in the sense that like what you're basically doing is bouncing from story beat to story beat. And flying through the city in your car and dropping off packages. And it's not like there's an open-ended package delivery system or any sort of like, it's not Elite, right? It's not generating missions for you or generating deliveries for you. It's actually more like Elite in another way, which I'll get to later now that I think about it. But instead, it's just kind of, you're kind of walking down the plot of being this new delivery driver in the cyberpunk city. You're from out of town. You're from,
Eastern Peninsula.
The Eastern Peninsula, which I'll come back to also shortly. And you're here under mysterious circumstances. It seems like your previous life, a life somewhat of privilege, has been ripped away from you, and now you are like running packages kind of surreptitiously in some instances through this stratified cyberpunk city. Rob, what's your impression of this game so far?
Very experiential.
Yeah,
like there's
sure.
not much to it so far. Like I'm only in the first couple hours, and mostly it is okay. Here's the thing it actually reminds me of, and so maybe this is why like I'm a little bit charitable to it right now, and especially given that it was kind of a perfect day for cyberpunk. It reminds me of what I imagined the world of Flashback would be like if you could go explore.
Sure. Yeah.
And so it's very much one of those things where it's all just like a vibe and flavor and like talking to people. But what you're basically doing is it's almost like visual novel-esque where you're just kind of driving between locations while these dialogues happen. And distance just fills the space for those dialogues to take place. But I haven't hit a point yet where it's like really opening up. It is mostly just go soak up the flavor, go have the mosaic of the backstory for your character and this world, have that revealed in pieces. But in the meantime, you're also playing kind of a slightly clunky game, I have to say. Like, it doesn't... I don't like driving around that much. I'm even less enamored of when I get out of the car and start running around.
Oh, the running around sequences are really rough. Those, like,
haven't seen a good camera relative control system.
There is not.
While.
It is, it is a rough one. As Rob gestured at, when you land to deliver these packages, you get out of the car and it puts you into like fixed camera positions in this neon drenched cyberpunk city. And you just move around corners and the camera will slowly not adjust. I guess sometimes it's not slow. Sometimes it's instant and really disorienting.
But it's got fixed camera points, which I find really interesting. Like the controls feel clunky, but what's interesting about it is this is a pretty big city and they've got decently cinematic angles on just about all of it. But it still feels weird because the camera doesn't follow your character. What it will do is your character will go down an alley. And rather than track in and stay like centered on like over your character's shoulders, instead the camera will basically like spider cam like swing across, like lurch across the landscape and then turn to face down the alley. And so it's a cinematic effect and it creates a lot of like decent framing on these scenes. Also, I love the soundscape in a lot of places in this game. Like, there's a lot of craft here. But at the same time, it feels like controlling your character is always relative to the camera.
Right.
And maybe you can change this in the options. But so that means like if your character is like, if you want to walk to the left of the screen, you say go left. But that could mean your character is facing forward relative to her. And so like you constantly have to make that adjustment. And then
the camera will change in the middle of doing that. And then you're like, oh, now I don't know where I am on this map. And it's to the degree where this is actually navigating these spaces is probably the core gameplay challenge, right? Which is not one that I think it needs necessarily. There are lots of... Have you gotten the collect 20 thing mission yet? 20, no. Not ID cards, like printed... What do you call them? They're, like old.
The punch cards.
The punch cards. Thank you. Punch cards. Thank you. You meet a character who needs those basically, and the character's story is kind of interesting. And you need 20 of them to advance the plot for that character. And they are randomly scattered across the entire map of this entire city that is separated by, like, I guess to paint the picture a little bit better, you're flying in a flying car, and the city below you is basically a bunch of islands of background areas and architecture, and then also islands of areas where you can actually land your car, get out, and walk around, all floating in the sky. And then those are all separated by loading screen. Not all separate. Each like subsections, each district of the city is separated from other districts by a loading screen, and which reveals another big map of these areas. And on each of those islands are a bunch of collectibles, which are like little blue icons on the map. And you need 20 of a certain type to advance this one character's subplot. And also, once you've done that once, she gives you a second mission that says, go collect 20 more punch cards to keep advancing my story. And I keep running up against this feeling in this game that the language, the design language of popular video games has done a disservice to what this should be. Because of two things. One is this specific thing, this collectibles idea, this idea of like, well, we got to give them something to do. How do we? So the basic premise of this character, without going into too much detail, is that there is an android whose memories have been kind of locked away, and by getting these punch cards, she can unlock these memories, and it's explicitly punch cards and not a more digital thing. It's like the punch cards have a crypto key on them or whatever to unlock her memories. It's not that you're finding her memories, because there's like an interesting thing in terms of the physical data storage versus digital data storage, or like unlocking versus actually storing it. There's like an interesting element there. But then that core idea has been spread across 40 punch cards that you have to go collect. Yeah. And again, this is the only thing that feels like a quote unquote challenge in this game is learning how to navigate these very complex little
and finding
urban
parking.
irons. Right, exactly.
Like, the thing this game fucking nails
Yes.
is the sensation of going around a block 3 times trying to find where the fucking parking lot is.
Is there an elevator here? What the fuck am I missing? Like, that feeling is constant. And I kind of like that feeling, but I actually think that feeling, the fixed camera stuff, it detracts from it a little bit for me. I think about something like, have either of you played Burn Band? BERNBAND.
No.
Burn Band is like a super indie game, like single person, made it in 2013, 2014 era. There's a sequel coming. But that game is a first person walk around an alien cyberpunk city world thing, no story, nothing. You're just walking around. Just click through this video I linked to you. People should look up Burn Band. And it's just like there are aliens everywhere, and you're kind of dwarfed by the size and scale of this giant city, and going down weird hallways and into garages, and then you pop out and you're in a party, and then you're like it's a very embodied feeling. This is also a bad video. I sent you a video where this person only goes into the hallways and does not actually show up anywhere in where the interesting shit is. I'm linking you to a different one. And that game gives you such a sense of a well realized sense of being lost in a cyberpunk city and lost in like the back alleys of a place like that. This game, I think, is so interested in making sure that you keep your eyes on the architecture, the eyes on the city, that it wants to give you these, like you said, cinematic fixed cameras, because that is what it thinks like the star of the show is. I think it is the star of the show for the first like 2 hours, but after that, it's like I've seen this language already. I've been drenched in neon now for hours, and there isn't a second act of visual design so far. I'm 3 or 4 hours in, so maybe hour 6 that makes a change. But right now, it's like I've seen the neon so much. I've seen the same like advertising signs. It's like what if Blade Runner only existed at the noodle shop and in transit instead of at a bunch of distinct locations. And that can be kind of tough. And I think that's one of the ways in which, and again, to then build collectible design around that. I mean, the other thing is the only other real mechanism is that you can make money. You can make money by selling the stuff that you find, or by buying stuff at one like random merchant and then flipping it at another merchant who has higher prices as if it were elite. And like that's just not in a game that is fundamentally trying to frame itself as a critique of capitalism and a critique of, this is a game that I think wants to criticize an Elon Musk. Do you know what I mean? Like I've definitely run into shitty streamers and people who are, I ran into a Debate Me Bro guy last night who is just a caricature of the Debate Me Bro to the degree that I don't know that it fully works.
Yeah, so I ran into the bro streamer.
Yeah,
and like again, this is all stuff you run across pretty early on. You go through a security checkpoint, and the police are outright taking bribes, voluntary contributions. It's all very like on the nose. You run into the toxic streamer dude, and he's such a caricature of. I can't even say he's like Joe Rogan because it's the thing's too broad even for that, right? It's a guy going around saying, "We want to bring you the perspective of the bros, dude," and it's all one of those. The reason it doesn't work for me is it feels pandering to the stereotypes people think someone like me holds about people who aren't like me.
100%.
And that pisses me off a little bit. Yes. It's like I know the title, like I know roughly what you're trying to parody here, but this is actually a really bad rendition of it, and so the satire misses because basically, like if this were to work for me, that would say more about me than it would about the target, right? Like this is a perspective, this is a satire that is pandering to a really cynical perspective that I don't
a very
really
surface level perspective almost, right? Is who it's pandering to, right? Someone who is like dismissed without analysis. There's a specific conversation that I'm going to spoil that is not a story conversation. It's, again, a random character who I only bumped into because I was trying to find these 20 punch cards, that I think speaks to this too. There's a as Rob mentioned, your character is from something called the Eastern Peninsula, which is outside of the city. Outside of this like huge metropolis where you can't even see the blue sky anymore. And you run into a person who is a music producer, a videographer, like someone who's like, I'm just making stuff happen, Hey, and very much there's a lot of you as a woman walking through this game being harassed at either low scale or high scale by dudes who either want to flirt and date you, and some of those you click with pretty quickly, and others who are just being like shitty and catcalling you and who are just really aggressive and weird. And this is one of the latter ones, who is a guy who is like, that looks like an Eastern print on your clothing. I need that energy for my next music video. And I'm like, all right, here we fucking go. And of course, that conversation becomes the back and forth exchange of this dude being like, like, I'm trying to learn about different parts of the world for inspiration for my new project. Like, how was it growing up outside of civilization in the East? And it's clearly like trying to lay down some satire here about a certain style of like hipster who thinks that he's worldly, trying to get. And so your character Rania is like, excuse you, like, we're very civilized. We have art and music and everything else. You don't know shit about us. And he goes, music? Tell me about the tribal drums you've played. And at this moment, you as a writer have a choice, because what you can do is develop what the place where she is from is, and have a response that recognizes difference and underscores the fact that there are a range of equally valid musical heritages and legacies, and that because of the forces of cultural hegemony, certain musical culture has become canonized and others haven't, right? Instead, this game does the other thing. She goes, actually, I grew up playing Bach. And it's like, oh, no, you agree with the fucking hipster. If you say, no, my people played your music, you've just agreed with him. You've ceded the position that what good music sounds like is Bach, and that actually the people you thought were tribal savages, quote unquote, were not, because they played white people music. And that is fucked. And like, it comes again from that position of only having that not only having, but it comes from a well-intentioned place that's meant to undermine a certain argument, but it fails to actually deconstruct it. It just inverts it. It just says, actually, the savages are civilized too, instead of saying actually savage and civilized are a broken binary, so
the thing, I haven't gotten to a point where I know anything about where she's from either. Like, my question there is this guy completely misguided, and she's actually part of the same cultural group too?
No, she is from a distinct cultural group. She reads Arabic. She is from a place where she doesn't believe in she doesn't have the same like religious touchstones. Like a big A plot here is her trying to figure out what Cora is, Cora, which has this sort of like technological but also faith-based like word meaning in this culture. She's from a distinct culture. Her name is Rania. I believe she's being coded as Arab, and Eastern is kind of being thrown over. I didn't even know it took place on Earth, and suddenly Bach came up. That's another thing. Is like at one point Bach came up, another point Tokyo came up. Like, I guess we're on fucking Earth. I had no idea. And so yeah, that's the thing, right? It's like those sorts of those elements are really. I want to be clear. There was stuff there that has totally worked for me. There are some interesting story bits. There are some really. I think the Cora stuff specifically. This idea that there's a word that keeps being used, and she's like, "What the fuck is that word?" And it's ubiquitous. People are like, "Blame it on Cora," or like, there's a whole range of. There's like, "Oh, I can't do anything about it. That's up to Cora," right? And it's like, okay, you talk about God. Sometimes it sounds like you're saying "fuck me" because of the way you're saying Cora. Sometimes it sounds like you're making a real appeal to a god. What is going on here? And that stuff is really fascinating. But that was a real like moment of like, ooh. like that was a swing and a miss for me, and it was a big swing because you really fucking squared your shoulders up for that swing. You know, once you bring Eastern tribal savages to bear, you got to hit a home run for me. Otherwise, it ends up looking bad. You know, not just looking bad, but feeling like we're off track from each other. I'm trying to think. So the other thing, going back real quick to the thing that I think like. The gameplay, the world of video games has done a disservice to good ideas in this game. You start getting moral quandaries as you do deliveries, right? And I'm not going to give there's a big early one that I think is pretty like obvious on its face. But there's a second one. The second one is just like, why does everything in this game need to be a moral, not everything, but why so often do you want to come to this place where there's a moral choice? It reeks of like BioWare taught us how to make video games, and the way is you have to give players capital C choices. So one of the missions you have, one of the deliveries you have, is to deliver an engine part to this race car driver, this person who's like doing illegal street races, and you get it to him, and he is an older dude, and he's like he's real friendly. His name is like Never Slow Joe or something like that. And he's like, you got to get a better name than Rania. What about like On the Run Rania? And you're like, oh, that's cute. Yeah, cool. I'm On the Run Rania. And then you give him the part, and he gives you back the old broken engine part. And he's like, hey, can you deliver this back to the mechanic? I'm going to spoil this quest. It's a small quest. It's like not an A-plot thing, to be clear. He's like, can you deliver this back to the mechanic? And that you got the good part from, this will settle my debt with him. And as you're walking away, you and your like AI companion start talking, and the discussion is basically like, well, if we settle his debt, then he can go back to the mechanic to fix his car if it breaks down. And what if he fixes his car, that means he can keep racing. And if he can keep racing, what if he dies while racing? So do you sell the part? Do you give the part back to the mechanic and settle his debt, or steal it and sell it to somebody else so that it theoretically keeps this dude from racing and presumably dying in a race at some point? I guess someone else will just buy the part from the other mechanic, and that person's allowed to race because I haven't spoken to them. But like, what is that choice? Why is it my job to decide whether or not this person? First of all, it doesn't. He will figure out a way to race if he wants to fucking race. 2, why didn't I talk to the dude about it? Why didn't I say, hey, are you sure you want to keep doing this race shit if I've decided to become that involved in this other human's life? It's one of those moments where it feels like a choice has been injected because on a chart somewhere it said choices need to be injected. And I don't think that's actually what happened, but that was the feeling of it. It was like, I know it's been 70 minutes since I made a choice, but I don't need to make a choice. Just give me the interesting story that you're telling. It's okay to give me that part. Go ahead.
Chases are overrated. Choices are overrated. Like
chases are not overrated, though. I would have loved to have been on a chase at least once so far in this game.
I would have wanted some better driving controls, or maybe I wouldn't.
No, I wouldn't.
Maybe
I
would
have fucking slam across.
Yes, yeah.
Absolutely. Cado, you had something. You were going to say something.
I was just going to say, like, there's a way to make that choice be in there, but like you're right. Like it requires a different type of framing where like you're talking to the guy, or like there's something. It's not like it. Maybe the choice is in dialogue, right? Instead of like trying to convince this person to stop racing for whatever reason, versus like taking that decision like off to the side without,
Yeah,
it's like if you want choice, there's definitely still a way that it could have been included, but you don't even. Yeah, it isn't always necessary even.
Totally. And for what it's worth, Rob, I've actually come around on the driving to where, weirdly, it was when I decided I wanted to start getting the collectibles, because that's what the game wanted me to do, and so I wanted to like see how that felt, so to speak. I started like just kind of doing the thing where I like zoned out while I flew around, and that made it click into place a little bit for me, like in terms of the driving. I don't know.
I think so. The thing is, this is actually a really impressive game. The thing I don't want to undersell is this game looks cool. It is a big city. It has a good vibe. I am really surprised at the degree to which it feels like there is a city alive and moving around me. Just little things, just like the way audio sources pan and move around your speakers as you drive by. It nails that feeling. It nails the soundscape of like watching Blade Runner or something.
It does,
right?
totally.
Where like the announcements start blaring in one ear and then you drive past and it fades away to a murmur. All that's really cool. And I think like there are times when I'm absolutely in the mood for a game that is mostly a vibe, right? And I think that's kind of where I'm at with Cloudpunk right now. But yeah, I do find a lot of the actual text has left me a little bit cold.
Yeah, my thought is like it seems to be a kind of a long adventure game, like 7-8 hours, and there sometimes something fails to convey what it is in those first few hours, and that over time your rhythms and its link up in a way. So I'm going to probably put one more night into it. I'm going to try to get 5 hours into it and feel like get a better sense of whether or not it's a story that I want to see through, because that at the end of the day is what I have to be here for this game. Like that is what this game is. It's an interesting, cyberpunk story about a new immigrant to a city that is falling apart. Let me shout out my favorite fucking thing about this game. Have you hit one of
the engineers?
Because the engineer is already sick. I already love the engineer. There's an engine. Do you want to set up the engineer and I'll pivot?
Yeah, so one of the first locations you go in the game, you run into an engineer who it's a very funny bit. He's very full of himself. He's like, I'm a real engineer. None of the other city engineers know what the fuck they're talking about. They've all just started to like believe in techno magic because they don't understand how the city operates. But I'm a real engineer. But let me tell you, this city is falling apart because all its infrastructure is like advanced technology from 1,000 years ago that is steadily falling apart. And we spend most of our day talking to, I love this detail. He says, a lot of engineers spend their time talking to AIs who went silent hundreds of years ago. Yeah. And it sort of recasts what the city is, right? It looks like a city of the future, but actually this is a city of the past, right? The city here is the ruins of a cyberpunk world. And it hasn't completely imploded, but it's also it's a city without a future in some ways, right? Like there is no longer ongoing development. There's nothing that's being built. Mm-hmm. It is a thing declining. And then the engineer asks you to, hey, just do some safety spot checks based on traffic light patterns that you might observe. But then, of course, he proceeds to unpack the fact that, like, he's a techno sorcerer as well. And completely has no understanding.
If the light turns green and then turns red, you got to tell me this. But if it turns red and then green, tell me that same thing. And if it turns red and then yellow and then red, you should definitely get in touch and let me know, because the same thing is probably happening. Like, all right, you're just one of these people. So the other half of that, Rob, is have you seen any of the moments of deterioration yet?
No.
All right. So repeatedly in this game, the only reason I feel good about saying this is because it's now a recurring thing. It's not a one-off. Sometimes I'm walking around one of these spaces. I'm walking around just like doing a delivery. And this is like for me the best argument for why there should be some fixed camera positions in this game. The camera pans in such a way to reveal a little bit more depth in the background, and an entire city block falls into the sea. Just collapses. It's incredible. Like it's like such an and like everyone just goes about their day. Like, oh yeah, I lost. Like, it comes up in conversation sometimes. Someone will be like, "Yeah, it's a shame about what happened with Bob," and your character will be like, "Well, what happened with Bob?" He's like, "It was in C Block 2 weeks ago, down in the whatever district, and it fell out of the clouds and into the sea." And you're like, well, is he okay? Like, no, he's dead. He died. So did all the other people on that block. And you'll just see it happen in the background. And that part is incredible. Like, what a great detail and visual, like, breathtaking, like, kind of spectacle that's trying to communicate that's trying to make visible the invisible, right? It's very much like, hey, this is happening in the city you're in right now. If you're living in a city, you just don't see it because it's happening to invisible the populations have been explicitly obfuscated from you. But like, this is what happens to poor people in this world, in your world, Austin, not in this world, the video game world, but also in the video game world. And like that effect, brilliant, incredible. I think some of the city design where it does break away from the like pure neon stuff, or like from the neon light stuff, the neon like signage, and shows like failed construction areas, or there are occasionally places where you get into spaces that are a little foggier, and maybe like the light is like breaking through, but you kind of lose sight of the overall structure of certain buildings. That stuff works for me really well. But it's just like one of those things where I want there to be that spectacle tends to be enough for me to play for like 30-minute sessions. But if this game really is like 7 or 8 hours, which is what I've seen people talk about it as, I'm not convinced it's going to pull me through all the way. But I think this is a good conversation, and I give it that. I think it's produced a good one, so that's good. I think it's like $20 on Steam, which it's at the very least worth watching some gameplay footage and thinking about what I think it's one of those ones where it's like you should try it and see if it gels with you, because it's one of those games that I think 5 years ago I would be over the moon about, but I've since played a bunch of other games about being in cities and in cyberpunk towns and blah 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 in this independent space that have made me a little less enamored with the kind of core experiential tone piece part of it that you mentioned, Rob. So yeah. Unless you have any other thoughts, that's Cloudpunk. What else is going on? Anyone else want to talk about anything? I'll do a quick one, which is I wrapped up Chimera Squad. Actually, that might not be a quick one because Cado, you're playing too.
Actually,
so let me not do that quick one. Let's take a 5-minute break, and then we'll come back and we'll come back to talk about Chimera Squad and some Gears Tactics and some other new stuff. Streets of Rage. So hang out. Cado, you started playing some XCOM Chimera Squad, right?
Yeah, I did.
Are you sticking to the thing that you suggested in our chat that you're trying to do?
I am, and it's hard.
Oh yeah.
I started playing that game, and I don't know why, but I just kind of assumed that this was part of it when you all mentioned the subdue, like the melee attack subdue that knocks people out. I think in my brain I assumed like, oh yeah, that makes sense. You're not trying to kill people because you're not at war anymore. This is a police action. You're probably trying to just subdue and arrest people. Turns out, nah. And
no, you kill people in this game for sure.
You're murking people from the start, which is kind of a weird. I don't know. I had some strange feelings of it, especially given, I don't know, this is maybe a little too personal, just like understanding where Firaxis is, because I went to college in Baltimore, and Firaxis is like 30 minutes north of that. And seeing that studio not think about how that reads, where like it's like that's not the, I mean, but it's also like it also does kind of mirror the way that police work will be fucking
right.
Horrible,
Is
right?
the choice between sanitizing something or fetishizing it?
Right, and I don't think it
the
goes
answer
all
is
the way
no.
to
There has to be another way of doing it, but
right.
But
and like I don't think it goes all the way to fetishizing it, but it's still like, yeah, it doesn't choose to be like, look, this is a new police force being made. Like maybe we set up some rules up front about engagement, especially when the technology exists. Like tranq rounds are in this game. You can buy.
Don't worry. By the end of that game, you will never use tranq rounds again.
You can.
They're like, yes, yeah.
You can buy bullets. That means all your guns work exactly the same, other than instead of killing people, they knock them out.
Right, but they don't get set on fire or get acid damage or do extra robot damage. And eventually, the thing that you get from keeping people alive in that game stops mattering to you, which is intel.
Right.
When you subdue people or knock them out with tranq rounds instead of killing them, what you get is intel, which is one of the resources. You spend intel to either get stuff from the scavenger shop, which is like cool but rare, but more importantly, you do it to buff up your field teams spread across the city, which give you more income across intel, Illyrium, which is your research stuff, and then money, which is how you just buy stuff normally from like the supply shop or whatever. Eventually, by the third investigation, those are all at level 3 for me anyway. I hardlined intel. I got as much because I did the thing you're doing, which is like I did my best to bring in as many people alive as possible. I invested in the intel sources first, and so eventually I just had all the intel. So at that point, I'm like, well, literally, I'm not incentivized at all to keep anyone alive. I still keep people alive when I can, but like it doesn't matter at that point because the only mechanical cost of not keeping someone alive was losing the intel that they would have provided, which
Chimera Squad's getting out of the business of intercepting messages and more into the business of sending messages. Yes. You know what I'm saying?
I have been enjoying the couple of weird there's some weird missions in here where like you're getting in like evidence or something, and like it's a chest somewhere on the map, and then you can just like book it. You can just leave, which is a very funny, like we're doing a weird reverse smash and grab. Like
totally. I mean, this game is weird about that in general, where like I don't understand how you've subdued 4 people. Right. And then you have to escape the premises, but you've still arrested these 4 people who are knocked out on the ground.
Right.
Like you'll get them to the point of a mission where you've gotten what you need. And it's like, we got to get the fuck out of here. There are more bad guys coming. And like, aren't you the cops? Right. If they're coming here, this is their city, actually. You are criminals. You're the ones who are taking their shit. I think that the game mostly ends up trying to like do the thing where it justifies it by having some truly villainous scum in some of these factions who slot into like, people who are either associated with war criminals from the past war or who are eugenicists or whatever. Like that ends up being the thing that they do. Like, oh no, these motherfuckers really suck. Though one of the factions I think is like deeply sympathetic in a way that's like just really sad. And the way it shakes out is just like, and the game knows it's sad that it shook out the way it did, but it doesn't, there's no alternative. It's not like it's,
there's no like, I mean, you can add it the way that I've done it of like, different levels of like levels of force that you're engaging people with depending on what is happening, right? Like, but that's not baked into the game as like this is something you should be thinking about. It's just like, you can use all of your early credits on tranq rounds if you feel like it. Good luck. And it's been rough. I got 2 people. I mean, it's what, day 11? I've got 2 people with scars already. Yeah.
You got to clear those scars.
Yeah, they're not. I got Cherub walking at only 5 spaces, which is not a lot. Which is because he's got the charge. He's supposed to be able to reach people.
Yeah, he's supposed to. He needs to be mobile. Yeah.
And also, my first recruit was the melee person because I was like, oh yeah, melee.
I never got them. Are they cool?
Yeah, I mean, it works for my playstyle where she doesn't kill anyone. Because it's all that subdue button, and she's got a root like punch.
Oh, cool.
Or like disorient. It's disorient.
It like does like the full disorient is the one where they get less. Their aim falls to shit, and all they can do is shoot. They can't do other abilities.
I believe so. Yeah, it like has a couple different effects that I forget specifically, but it's mostly that when you breach, she gets to run at someone, like
love it
full length. Like it's just called aggressive sprint or something. It's very good. Nice. But yeah, it ended up being just like of these choices I have, this one is the non-lethal one, so let's try that out.
God, yeah.
I want to see how far I can get just like not killing anyone.
Listen, I did this with Watch Dogs 1. I love this style of play. I think that like it's one thing to do non-lethal in a game that's encouraging you to do non-lethal runs.
Right.
It's a way more interesting and fun thing in my experience to do it in a game that has no interest in letting you do it.
Nope. And you end up doing things like, you know, the guy with the pistol, like, oh, you can't kill this person anyway, so like soften them up a bit. Right? You get to like wing them in the leg or whatever so that the other person can come up and finish the arrest and things like that. It's interesting to try to figure this out. Also, shit. No, I forgot what I was going to say. I'm going to cut this.
Okay.
My brain.
It reminds me a lot of there was a games academic or is a games academic named James Shermer who did a playthrough of Fallout 3, a non-lethal playthrough of Fallout 3, which is a very difficult thing to do because that game does not give you doesn't give you solutions for most things where you can get through it without fighting. So very cool. Anyway, what were you gonna say?
Well, no, I remembered where I was going. It's just like I got the achievement for finishing a mission non-lethally, like not killing a single person. And the Steam statistics are like 10% of people have ever gotten that have played the game. Yeah. So it's just like, you know, that game isn't really making those choices seem worthwhile or.
It is very worth doing it early on. It is very worth doing it. And like I said, then it stops being so worth it after that, which is not. But great.
it's worth it up to a point too, because it's like you get a certain percentage depending on how many people you subdue, and then until I believe it's 5 people. After that, you're at 100%. It doesn't matter if you subdue more people. You're
getting that intel, right? You're right.
You're getting that 20 intel, and that's the max. It doesn't matter how many people you subdue once you get that percentage up to 100. So even then, it's like, it's chill. We're gonna
listen, go wild.
Right.
Yeah. And that's on top of like, you know what's useful in XCOM games? Grenades. You know what's like all that, or like I think about there is not a non-lethal version of Blue Blood's Phase Lance shot where he just eradicates an entire line of enemies and cover. There's no stun setting on that ability. No.
Really? Like if you're using trank rounds on him,
he pulls out a different gun and blasts. It's like
you can't trank round the fucking death ray.
No, it's a death ray.
It's like the fucking like kind of they're watching the Independence Day like flying saucer hover over New York. Like, does that come in a non-lethal version?
No, it's just because I had a really good moment with Godmother, who's got the scatter shot.
Yeah, but that's because she's using her regular ass gun.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But she like hit 4 people and knocked them all out.
That's great. No,
she's beautiful
MVP. You know, there's a reason why she's like the CEO of that squad fictionally or whatever. Yeah, she fucking rules. She's more like the XO anyway.
That might be the most dystopian way to put it. Is like in the world of XCOM Chimera Squad, like squads no longer have like squad sergeants or team leaders. It's I'm the CEO of Chimera Squad.
I said
we like to have an entrepreneurial.
I said CEO. I said CEO. You're right. CEO would have been worse. God,
Cherub, I just feel like you don't have an entrepreneurial enough spirit when we breach.
God, incredible. I wrapped that game up. 21 hours is a great length for an XCOM game. Right, 21 hours, you're in and out. It definitely hit me with that thing where I was like, I think I'm going into the last mission. I was not going into the last mission. There's another mission after that. I will say I arrested the big bad guy. I did not kill him.
Nice.
All his soldiers.
Then you'd have been as bad as he is.
Exactly.
Don't do it. Otherwise, it'll be just like him.
They give you a real opportunity to fucking arrest him too, based on some abilities he has. It's funny. Anyway, that game I think sustains itself. I mean. You get more bugs as you keep playing because it's an XCOM game. They've definitely got that classic XCOM shit of like, I did an action and the camera just hangs over an enemy's head for 20 seconds doing nothing. Like, I hope it just fixes itself.
Why did this row of squares stop being space I could move in the battle? That was real fun in a highway mission.
Yep,
where
love it.
I had a covered route to the exit, and then that row just stopped existing.
Love it.
And I was
Incredible.
like, I guess I gotta run back through that fire field. Okay.
Oh, a lot of dealing with that stuff, and like I think that stuff. I hope that stuff gets fixed in patches, but it's frustrating. It never stopped me. It never ruined a run or a mission or anything like that. I mean, it's a very generous game. Whenever I've gotten fucked over whenever I feel like, oh man, this isn't going the way I want to, I fucked up. Or whenever I'm like, I breached with 95% chances to hit and none of them hit. Fucking hit escape, hit restart encounter. You don't even have to go back to the beginning of the mission. You can restart the encounter. You can restart the room you are in this game. This game is meant to be fucking blitzed through, and I've had a lot of fun just doing that. I think that the story goes some interesting places. Like, I actually think that the overarching thrust of what's going on in City 31 is really interesting. It's just like, again, it's popcorny, but it's compared to like Cloudpunk very clearly has someone who shares a lot of ideological beliefs with me. But it's what you said before, Rob, where it's like there's a degree to which you're engaging with these things in a way that feels pandery or feels undercooked. Whereas here you get the thing of just like, oh, this is a world where I can build the lines between things that I am interested in, and also get the joy of criticizing the fact that there is kind of a light hand on what they think good policing looks like. And sometimes there's joy in that critique. Also,
shout outs to whoever wrote and recorded the Big Crunch cereal.
Oh my God. All their cereal
ads were good times.
For all their advertisements on the radio were good.
The cereal that writhes.
God, have you gotten to like the conversations about I think it's hot dogs or burgers yet?
No.
What?
One of the big things happening in this city is about food politics.
Yeah.
And it's that no one eats the same shit. Everyone has to eat different things. And so there's almost like an arms race to see who can make the first like universal food. And it's like this burger company is the one that is like trying to figure out a burger, like the universal burger. Everyone can eat this fucking burger, even though some of you are aliens who have different entire, needs for nutrition and have chemical reactions such that you couldn't eat beef because beef would kill you. And the advertisements for it are just the advertisements are really good. And there's like that second layer of people who are like, in both fluff text and I think some of the radio dialogue, people who are like, I don't believe they'll ever do it. This is a trick. This is a conspiracy. They want you to eat their burgers. Like that type of shit is so good. And the world building is just very particular to the needs of a post XCOM 2 world in a way that feels very particular and very like realized. I really like it. Also, a lot of the environments are just awesome. A lot of the like locations have lots of little details that put XCOM 2's city to shame in terms of just like, again, cereal boxes and toy. Did you see the Sailor Moon, the sectoid Sailor Moon that was going around?
Yeah.
It's incredible. It's like a magical girl sectoid. Cause like, yes, of course there would be a magical girl sectoid. Everyone's integrated. Everyone fucking thinks Sailor Moon slaps. And that stuff is all really good. And yeah, I think 21 hours, I don't know that it had a 30th hour in it, but it certainly had just over 20. And for $20 or $10 if you got it in this opening week or whatever, I think it's definitely worth that.
Yeah.
That time. What else is going on? Rob, you've been playing some more Gears Tactics?
Yeah.
How's it going?
It's good. I think I sort of hit the point where I realized the campaign layer, and this is kind of my main thing I hit in my review, is the way the campaign is constructed doesn't entirely work in some frustrating ways. And I'm trying to sort out to what degree I'm kind of dinging it for not being more like XCOM when it's also clearly trying to carve out its own identity. But there's ways it echoes it, and then it runs into problems with its structure that I don't like the solutions they settled on. And the big one is that this isn't a game where there's a strategic layer and you're sort of choosing what you do. Like the most you'll encounter is between story missions, you will hit a selection of side missions that you have to consider for options. And what you'll encounter in this game is between the major story missions where the plot advances, you will have an array of side missions. Say it'll give you 3 options for side missions. You have to do 2. And some of the side missions will have things like, the main character, Gabriel Diaz, he's not allowed to come on this mission. So you have to use somebody else for this mission. Or you can only bring 2 characters on this mission. And the other catch is that the conceit of this game is you and your team of commandos are kind of rolling around the landscape in this convoy. Not that like the travel matters, but that's just the idea of that's how you're getting from mission to mission. And while you're doing these side missions, they're all happening simultaneously. And so somebody sent on the first side mission you do will not be available for the second side mission you do. And theoretically, this is how they start rotating the non-main characters into the game, right? And this is how they start encouraging you to play around with squad composition. But the thing is, the game funnels you toward the 3 main characters so constantly that after a point, it starts to feel like, unless you're really trying to push against the game, like from this standpoint, chances are you're going to be running most missions with these character types, right? And maybe these specific heroes. And the characters you recruit along the way won't really come along on too many missions, and they won't keep pace on the experience curve. The game's solution to this is to regularly allow you to replace those characters with new characters you get who are blank slates, but they're like, level 4, level 5. And they come with the experience points you need just to level them up to the point where they are appropriate for this part of the game. And that's going to prevent you from getting bottlenecked, which is smart. But it also kind of means that I forge no relationship with any of my characters. Not really, right? They're just kind of bags of abilities that you can sort of mix and match. And I like the mixing and matching of abilities. And I think this is the frustrating thing is Gears Tactics has a lot of really cool possibilities for the various synergies you can uncover with different, because every character class has basically 4 different subclasses that characters can spec out into. And they can sort of mix and match within that. And if you sort of think about how all those possibilities fit together, there's a lot of different ways that your squad can play. There's a lot of different tactics you can hit on that haven't necessarily occurred to you, right? It's not like the game is steering you towards them. It's just like, this is now a possibility that exists because I sort of split class this character and I really min-max this other one. And so now I have some cool strategies available to me. But the effect of that is somewhat diminished for me just because if the characters feel like sort of these interchangeable blanks, it kind of feels like the progression of these characters doesn't matter at all, right? Like that's not what this game is about, but the game kind of foregrounds it. And then it also keeps giving you all these fucking items and it's important. Like itemization in this game is important. You can give your characters some really critical buffs via itemization that will allow them to really push some strategies all the way to the stops, basically, right? Like I want to say one of my characters had a magazine that carried like 3 extra rounds. That guy never needs to reload, basically. Yeah, that guy is just like taking shots nonstop. But that changes how the character is going to be. But there's only one of those items. And so you're constantly in this game kind of, on the one hand, the game's kind of encouraging you, hey, you know that like heavy you used for a couple missions? He's kind of behind the level curve now because there's not really enough spaces for him to do stuff.
Right.
Why don't you just discard him and take this new heavy who has 8 skill points and just spec him out however you want? Odds are very good, and I've certainly sort of felt pushed to do this. It's like, well, I kind of need that heavy, though, that I was building. I know how to use him. So what I'll do is I'll take this new heavy, and I'll just build him the exact same way.
Right, fuck.
Yeah, and I'll put the same items on him, and that'll be cool.
Hello, new Dave.
Right.
Yeah, and that also, like, there's a lot of character customization options that it's certainly not XCOM. Like, everyone is going to come out of this looking like some variation of a Gears of War, character. But there's not a version of this where like somebody suddenly gets a long neck. That's just not this game.
Long neck Dave.
This game.
Yeah.
It's Dave with the long neck.
God.
But the other issue is, and this is where it does remind me of kind of a first in a tactics series type of game. There's some things that are just way too fucking powerful, and they kind of break the game a little bit, or make it much less incentivized to experiment. And the big one that I cite in my review is like the sniper. It's these things fucking, like, they're hard to do. Like,
that was also true for XCOM yes. Enemy Unknown, that once you had a sniper who's kitted out right with the right abilities, they would just lean back and wreck every map.
Yeah. Just put them on a second story with a decent sight line.
Yep.
And their high crit chance. That repeats here, and then they just like give it steroids. One of the main characters, Michaela, is the sniper. In the plot, she's a civilian. She's leading like the civilian resistance who've been totally abandoned by COG, and they've just been sort of out there fighting off the Locust by themselves. And she's just this like terrifyingly badass sniper who hates COG, hates the military, and she's sort of the cynical resistance leader that your team of commandos has to co-opt along the way in sort of the commando movie version of the story. But here's what she can do. The way I spec'd her out, there are a ton of abilities where she can get, every character starts with 3 actions. She can give herself more actions by doing things like fucking dudes up with sniper rifles.
Oh my God.
So she has this ability, take a shot. If it hits, she gets 2 more actions.
Yeah, I got that ability when I take shots too.
Exactly. So she can do that, and then she's got another ability that starts out being take a shot. If it downs somebody, the character gets a free reload. Her critical chance, because she's a sniper and because I kitted her out with all the items that raised her critical chance. Like, if she hits somebody, it's like a 50-50 chance whether or not they're getting critted, and at that point, there's very few characters who are not going to be brought down by her shots.
Right.
So, if she hits those and downs a character, she gets a free reload. And by the way, after she reloads on an empty magazine, it's Gears of War, so you get the active reload buff, and so now her shots are doing even more damage,
which means it's easier to chain these things.
Yeah, dude. So it just becomes like this one character can kill like 7 or 8 enemies in a single round. It is like, there was a big dramatic showdown at this old like bioweapons research lab somewhere, and the game's like, we're bringing it. Like, you're getting completely overwhelmed, and I got her in a second story Overwatch flank position. And like it was a hard turn. Like I was in a difficult situation until I thought about it for like a minute or two, and I saw like how I could feed some extra actions to her, because Gabe has the ability to just gift people extra actions and extra damage as he develops that ability. And once that feedback loop got rolling, in the space of a turn, like, those 2 characters destroyed the entire Locust army. Barely needed anybody else. And that has happened more than once in this game. And it's okay to have those experiences as a treat, right? Like the perfect turn where you just completely ruin everyone. That's awesome. That is fun. But when you discover like, I can just break the game wide open on command in this exact way, why would I ever not do this? Why would I ever not bring a sniper who can do that, and instead bring a shitty scout who has a shotgun that is just like a shotgun in a multiplayer shooter? So it's basically a blunderbuss that doesn't do shit unless you're like adjacent
next to the person. Yeah.
And so like I never found a use case for scouts. Like, there were situations where I could make them useful, but it required like table setting for the scout in a way that no other character class required. I was like, okay, scout, here's your moment. No, fuck that. Like, every moment was Michaela's moment.
Right. Well, shout outs to Michaela. I like this is such a tactics game thing. You're totally right. That's how Alicia is in the first Valkyria Chronicles. I honestly like. I feel like Blue Blood is that in this new XCOM game. There's like I didn't mention this before. Blue Blood gets an ability in this game called Face Off, which is a great name for a pistolero.
Fantastic.
And it's you have to remember blue
a flock
blood,
of doves
flies around. He shoots until he's out of ammo, and he shoots every enemy in the room until he's out of ammo that he can see. And by like mid game, he was already my best person. Because what he could do in a sequence like this is look around a room. Okay, so first turn, you breach in. You've already done some damage to someone because of your breach attack. Maybe you've already killed someone. You can take a shot with his like do more damage but be a little less accurate thing. And if that's your first shot in a round for him, it doesn't end the turn. Then he has lightning hands. Then he has face off. And so it's like I've shot and his gun had 5 bullets in it. So I can shoot 7 times in this round if I want to. And that's or if I happen to line up the whatever lance thing, I can also just shoot 7 people if I have it lined up right in a single shot instead. And it's like when it works, it feels really good. But when it works too often, you feel like you've stopped playing the game and you're basically just twiddling your thumbs and letting the game play itself a little bit. And it's better than the opposite problem, I guess, which is like getting rolled and not feeling like you have any solution. But when it takes other characters off the map, or when it's like, I would never not run with this crew, it sounds like you would never not bring Michaela. Then I feel like there's a limit to what they've built. Like there should be some drawback for bringing a sniper to every mission. Not every mission should be a sniper mission.
XCOM at least was like, hey, like the type of sniper that's really deadly this way, they have to be at least set up for a turn so that they can start taking those shots. And that rapidly became ineffective at keeping that class under control, but still, like, it was a stab at it.
Yeah.
It's tricky, but I think this is a problem you encounter a lot when I think there's a tendency across a lot of game design to make things like give the player more tools, give the player a feeling of greater power and capacity, and then try to balance by just scaling up the difficulty around that rather than by imposing negatives, which can feel bad.
Totally.
But I think coming from the standpoint of like, I play war games a lot, right? Like war games are all about downside. Like snipers in a game of like a war game about like infantry combat are your quintessential like glass cannon weapon, right? Like maybe they will get a shot off and like kill a lieutenant or something,
right?
And wipe out the command buff for an entire enemy unit they're up against. But they're not going to be able to take out an entire squad because once the sniper takes that shot, everyone's like, oh shit, sniper, and just starts pasting that position. They take cover and like they don't do shit. Like war games operate under this, in this sort of combat environment where everything generally becomes super vulnerable once it is revealed itself. Once it is a known quantity and the element of surprise is lost, then you're kind of up against some clear upsides and downsides, what you're dealing with. Tactics games in this mold, I think, tend to push everything to the what if this archetype, but the superhero version of it, right? Like sniper, but it has to be like the dude in Saving Private Ryan who never misses,
right?
And that gets you to a weird place, especially if your character starts in that position of like level 1, they're already the dude in Saving Private Ryan who never misses.
Right.
Like level 8, they are basically like long gun Jesus.
Jesus, just a monster with a long arm. That's tough. I mean, my guess is you're going to finish this thing out at this point because you've already put so much time into it. So maybe I hope that you get at least some missions that counteract that particular play style. I always like that moment of a tactics game where like my solution has been called into question because they've introduced some sort of new enemy type or because, whatever, there's some sort of shift. When that stuff happens, it feels really good. I will shout out, I've mentioned before that I started playing this game called Horizon's Gate, this kind of open world RPG with like a tactics combat system. It's all designed by a single person. I love it. I've like continued to play it as like my chill out game. I do kind of like pilot my ship around the sea and try to get up to some hijinks once or twice before bed every day. And I had an incredible set of encounters in that game's tactical combat system. I mean, it already was just like, so this is a game where you start off with like a shitty ship, you can upgrade to another ship, you can eventually build fleets of ships. It's fantasy, pirate, kingdom stuff. And I had a mission from someone to go find a particular place on the world map, and all I had was kind of a snapshot of what the geography of the region looked like, not like a waypoint on the map. And I haven't explored most of the map yet, so I couldn't know if the thing that they showed me was a place that I'd been to already or a place somewhere else. And so I started just exploring this massive world map with my ship, piloting around, and getting into, stopping at ports to make sure my crew was fed and finding like little hives of monsters to fight here and there, stuff like that. And eventually, I found this island. And sometimes you find an island or a landing spot, and it's like 3 pirates on the coast who want to fight you. Sometimes you find a wandering trader who has like a cool steamship in the middle of the sea, and you fight his turrets, and then you go inside, and it turns out he's like, oh fuck, I didn't mean to leave those on. Anyway, do you want me to teach you how to build cool turrets? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. But this time I found a beach, and on that beach was nothing except kind of a stone fortress that had been built into the side of a cliff face. And again, this is all like Super Nintendo. Like this is like, imagine I'm saying all this and you're imagining Stardew Valley, right? Like that is literally what it looks like. But at the front of this fortress carved into the stone wall or carved into the stone cliff face was this weird pulsating red rock. And I'm like, all right, what the fuck is this? And I walk up to it, and it's
I wonder what that could be.
I don't know. So let me try to hit it and see what happens. And so I hit it because I saved the game. I'm like, let me hit it. Let me see if I can break this. Like it's clearly blocking the path of entrance for me here. And I hit it with my sword. It does this 1 damage, and then it does this like poof, and it pushes everybody back, and it puts them all to sleep. And I have to wait for the party to wake up, and then it self-heals. It heals that 1 damage. And I'm like, what the fuck is this thing? And so I eventually realized, 1, it's weak to fire. 2, I have 1 round to destroy it, and if I do, it opens up, and if I don't, it will push me back and put me to sleep and heal itself, which is already like a really fun tactics mini game. It's like, okay, I know it's weak to fire. I have 2 mages and then like a scout in my party who can literally just like flint and steel some fire next 1 tile away from him. And it's like I managed to get like almost there, and it puts me to sleep. And I realized the 3rd time, okay, I have an ability from one of my warrior type dudes who can basically intimidate someone and push them back in the turn order just a little bit. And it was just enough time for me to get 1 more fire attack in and open the door to this place. So you go in, and it's like, boom, awesome. It felt great. Like, oh, wow, I solved this tactics puzzle in this, like, that. It felt like solving one of those Fable puzzle doors. You know what I'm talking about? From, like, the talking doors from Fable, except way better because it meant actually using my abilities and not just, like, dragging a sheep there from across the map or whatever.
You said fabled puzzle doors. And I was like, yes, I know just what you mean.
The fabled puzzle doors of yore.
The longest day of the year, waiting for the bird.
The fabled puzzle doors of I've never seen one, but my family says they're amazing. Different times. Anyway, so I go into this fortress.
We can go outside.
We can still go outside. We can open the fabled puzzle door. I go inside, and it is this decrepit old fortress that has been overrun with these things called heatles. Heatles, like a beetle, but with heat. And so let me tell you what these fucking things do. What they do is spit fire at you a lot. But more importantly, if you hit them with fire, they start blinking because it's a video game. And when something blinks like that, you know they're about to explode and do an AoE attack all around them, destroying your precious melee fighters or destroying any enemy units adjacent to them. And I had this just like, it's just, it's a fight from one room to the next, very, very XCOM Chimera Squadron-esque in that, you don't really have to worry about, you kind of heal up in between fights, or you have the opportunity to heal yourself up between these fights, and you're exploring, there's like puzzles and blah, 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 but eventually I fought through a bunch of them and I got to King Heedle. A massive Heedle that has seen kingdoms rise and fall, aggressive and foul-tempered. It spouts flame at anything that so much as irritates it. Many have tried to slay it, but they were burnt to cinders before they could take a second swing. Great care must be taken not to ignite it. If it explodes, nothing in the same room will survive. And it's that plus like 5 of the little Heedles around it. And that fight was like some of the most rewarding tactics combat I've had in a game in years, because it meant balancing all of my character, like turn order stuff really well. It meant intentionally blowing up some of the smaller Heedles while intentionally like trying to literally use ice magic to cool off other ones. It meant using like pushes and pulls to try to move them such that they would chain react when I wanted them to, or not chain react when I didn't want them to. It meant realizing I had this ability, I had a skill point basically on this one character, and then I could use it to put into an ability that would let him self-heal when he did damage, which would be enough to where he could get a kill on a little one and survive the following kind of explosion that happened. And that stuff was just like, it scratched every tactics itch I've had because of how many great little interlocking systems there are and great ways in which the stuff that like the character, there are 1,000 classes in this game. There's like 30 classes in this game. And it's easy for that to just be nothing. It's easy in a game that has that much differentiation to where it doesn't mean anything. Do you know what I mean? Like there isn't actually, what's the difference between one melee fighter and another one? Well, the answer is this one is all about crowd control, even though it's a melee unit. This one is all about moving units around. This one is all about just tanking. And when you have all those things in interesting combinations, you end up having really cleverly designed tactical encounters where I'm trying to balance bugs that blow up. You end up having these really big brain tactics moments where you're just like, yes, I'm a genius. Yes, I've died to the same fight for an hour, but now I am a genius because I figured out that if I use this special 4-way ice magic, I can cool them off just before they blow up, and then I can do a final hit on them that doesn't blow them up, and I'll knock it back into the other one, and then da-da-da-da-da. And that just, I loved it so much. So shout outs again to Horizon's Gate. A game that I hope continues to grow an audience, because every hour I spend with it is like just an incredible time. And I hope that it really finds a big audience. Anyone else have stuff they want to shout out? I have 2 more things, so I'm trying to pass the mic around here. But I don't know if anyone else has gone as deep as me this week on shit. I don't know what happened. I was like, I'm gonna play video games this week.
I made a Gunpla instead.
Oh, hell yeah. What'd you make?
I almost finished my real grade.
You don't have to talk in whispers here. You can be proud about your fucking. I hear you feeling embarrassed that you built a Gundam model.
I was turning and looking for the number.
Okay.
I was embarrassed that I couldn't remember what the model of the RX-78. It's
Amuro's Gundam. Yes. Okay. Yeah. The Gundam. The motherfucking Gundam. Yeah.
Yeah. The motherfucking Gundam with a million greebles on it.
Yes. Love it.
So I spent 2 hours, 3 hours, 2 hours placing. So there's 150 individual stickers that have to go on this thing, and I think I got through the first 80. They're tiny.
A lot of stickers.
This thing is a 144 scale too, so like it's like
they're small. The real grades
6
are
6 inches tall. So imagine how small these things are.
I've never built a real grade. I've done perfect grades, but I've never done a real grade, and I don't know that I can. I don't know. I feel like
the actual build wasn't too bad.
Or sorry, I've done perfect grades. I've done there's high grade. I've done master grades. I've done master grades. Yeah. I've never done a perfect grades are gigantic. Perfect grades are like 1/60th, and they're also a fortune. I've never done a PG, but I've done a master grade before. But I don't know that I could do 1/44th scale. With that degree of
also complex,
yeah, my hands are too shaky.
on the build, because this one keeps falling apart. The pieces, and I've looked it up. And it's like, yeah, that one wasn't great, which is fine. It's like very much like you can't touch it too much, or else it'll start falling apart. But it looks cool because it's got lots of greebles.
Hell yeah. I love some greebles. Two Gundam things to shout out really quick. One is I did spend some time with the Gundam Extreme vs. Maxiboost ON.
That's right.
Beta stuff that was this past weekend. And that game is good. I like that game. That game is good for the 7 matches I played or whatever. I've been a fan of the Gundam Versus games since there were Gundam Versus games, well before it is the thing it is now, and when it was a much more like slow paced thing. But the contemporary Extreme Versus games are really, really fun. Like arena, they're an arena fighter, but not in the sense that they're not like, I don't know. It's hard to explain what they are. They're like even faster paced virtual on with jumping and flying and a billion characters, because basically there's like 100 different mobile suits in that game. And it's like very much like find your character and learn how their abilities work and interact with people. And it's a 2v2 kind of open arena fighting game thing.
Right.
I love it. It's really good. I'm really excited for that to get a full release. The netcode seemed good to me. I didn't have any issues, which was not the case when I played past Gundam Versus games, but mostly because most of the players on most past Gundam Versus games are overseas, because I'm the weirdo who's imported it. So I'm like, of course my ping is shit, you know? So it's just exciting to know that there will be some sort of Gundam Versus community here in the States that's like bigger, or North America in general, and the West in general. The other Gundam thing really quick is I just want to shout out that I was just on the Great Gundam Project, which is run by the podcast by friends of the site, M and Jackson, as part of the Abnormal Mapping Network. And I just did the first 2 episodes of Gundam Wing, which is the Gundam that I think brought many, many people who listen to the show who like Gundam into Gundam, because it was North America's first Gundam. And it's fun to go back and it's that Toonami shit. It was fun to go back and watch those episodes and to talk about it. You can find those at Abnormal Mapping's Patreon, I believe. The first episode is free, and then in general, Great Gundam Project is like $1 a month and extremely worth that $1. People should go support it. Something else I played that I will give. I'm Streets of Rage 4 came out, and speaking of things that mattered a lot to me as a kid, speaking of things that mattered a lot to me in the age of Toonami, really predating Toonami, Streets of Rage 2 is in my top 5 games of all time, probably. The top 5 thing has been going around lately. Top 5 games of all time for me, I feel like, is incomplete without Streets of Rage 2. A Sega Genesis beat 'em up that has impeccable style, a soundtrack that draws on the sort of music that I'd never heard before, and honestly since in video games, which is to say drawing on house music, drawing on dance music of the 80s and 90s. The soundtrack, the original soundtrack for Streets of Rage 2 is an all-time like hit fest. It's primarily composed by Yuzo Koshiro and Motohiro Kawashima. The two of them have just do incredible work all the way through it. The reason I hit this so hard is because there's things I really love about Streets of Rage 4. One thing I don't love is the soundtrack. And it's one of those things where it's like, if we were in the world of doing game scores, this would be one where I'd be like, can we please weight it such that the soundtrack matters more than everything else? Because that is so core to the identity of this game for me. I guess I'll start with like the stuff that I really like about Streets of Rage 4. I think as producing a beat 'em up, a 2D side-scrolling beat 'em up in 2020 is an incredibly risky thing that requires a lot of thought about how to do it well. Because the arcade style beat 'em up of the 90s does not have legs today. No. I think they've done a lot of good work making this a really fun beat 'em up with some really clever structural designs and a really fluid, fun to play combat system that is an improvement on past Streets of Rage games, and honestly might be one of the best straight up beat 'em ups that I've played ever in this kind of 2D side scrolling format. It feels so good to beat the shit out of people in this game. There's a lot of like juggling. There's a lot of smart stuff around the ways in which you use your extra abilities. There's like super moves that have always been in the series, but now when you use the super move, when you hit like your super move button, it always took some health from you, but now it takes that health from you and then bloodborns it, where you can earn that health back by getting hits in on an enemy, and so you are kind of rewarded for using a super move and then getting aggressive after it. And so that's already one really smart move. The other thing is, it's not a game about like you have 2 lives and then you have to get through the entire game on those 2 lives and any extra lives that you get along the way, which is kind of the original beat 'em up model. Here, you kind of have 2 lives to get through what can be a really hard level. The levels in this and the bosses in this really do push you to really understand how your character works and to read their rhythms and what their attacks are going to be and anticipate what they're going to do. And it can be, there are definitely levels that like took me 2 or 3 tries to get through. And that is with one character. There's like 6 characters that you can unlock all set, or maybe it's even more than that. And that is great. That's such a smart version of the beat 'em up, because it means that every level feels discrete and every level feels like it's able to bring its own challenge. But what I don't think it has is the sense of style, or like there are lots of times when it feels like it wants to play music from Hotline Miami, and that's not the vibe. I can't turn this into a Giant Bomb Game of the Year thing where I'm just linking you songs. I can't do that. But please know that like it's so tough, because it's like I don't ever want to tell someone who is composing like, oh, you have to just ape this one particular style. But one of the things that made Streets of Rage was that it was pulling from a sort of moment in American, often black queer dance music that made it stand out, and then it mixed in a whole bunch of shit from, and I want to be clear, there's other sounds in there for sure, especially in Streets of Rage 2, where and then especially Streets of Rage 3, the composers go all over the place, but that core is still there. And on top of that, there is a certain sense of like 80s straight to VHS shitty like action movie. And neither of those vibes it's not grimy enough, because it's trying to be 2013 Kavinsky grimy. It's not trying to be like 1989 house music, drum and bass music grimy. There are some tracks in here that I really like. There are some levels that I think have really great vibes. But it often felt like I was just watching like a different beat 'em up that wanted to have like an homage level to Streets of Rage instead of really committing to the bit, if that makes sense. I don't know. My suspicion is this game is going to be very well received because it's very well made. Right. It's just one of those things where it's like, I'm too close to it. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. It's tough. There's a cool boss fight against Shiva, who is like my all-time favorite boss in a video game, and that's cool, I guess. I'm gonna hope to play some of it co-op and see if that changes some of my opinion on it. But yeah, it's just like it doesn't quite hit right for me, and a large part of that is the music being kind of more, it's not generic. It's just pulling from EDM. It's pulling from, other types of, like, I don't know. I think there's a way to do this with new music, but for me, I would have loved for it to pull from something that doesn't just fall into kind of retro synthwave stuff. But that's not, I don't know. It's tough.
It's moments like this where I'm like surprised when I hear about people playing video games to like other soundtracks or podcasts.
Yeah.
Because so often I feel like the choices that are being made in soundtrack do matter to like the emotional content that's happening in the game usually. Like
totally.
So, I feel for you with the
it's tough.
the fact that
it
doesn't quite gel the way.
It's a composer who I love. It's actually a composer. It's a game composer whose work I really love. It's Olivier Derivier, I believe is how you pronounce his last name. He composed the Remember Me soundtrack, which is like an all-time fave that I love. He did. He's done a bunch of other stuff for. He did the Vampire soundtrack, Rob, that I know you love.
There should have been more of it, but what was there was great.
The Plague Tale Innocence soundtrack, the Greedfall soundtrack, really turning in some Focus homework is what I'm looking at here. But I think has genuinely done really good stuff over the last 10 years of playing stuff that's had his music in it. And I think that some of the stuff is fine. It's just not fine for the vibe that the game is pulling from, like the original Streets of Rage was neon soaked, but it was not neon soaked with like heavy Eurosynth. It was neon soaked with the sounds of like Chicago. And that is
the streets
with the streets. With the streets. And let me tell you, there's a song in this game, in the soundtrack called The Streets. It don't sound like The Streets to me.
Damn.
It don't.
It's a bummer. It's a
bummer. There are some bops. I think specifically there's a level that takes place in like a gallery, like an art gallery, and that song slaps. And there are moments when it's like trying to evoke some previous like Streets of Rage stuff. I mean, I want to be clear. This is not just Olivier Derivier doing the soundtrack. It like Yuzo Koshiro is on this, and I don't necessarily love the stuff that Koshiro's done for some of this, but it's definitely more in that model, right? There's a Motohiro Kawashima song on this track or on the soundtrack, including one for a boss fight that takes place at a concert, and I don't even think that track is that good. And that's tough. It's tough to say that. You know what I mean? It is what it is. It is what it is. And like maybe I would have never been happy. That's totally possible.
Right.
But oh well.
You have a certain expectation because something is so long running in a specific way.
Yes. Yeah. No. This is like some people play
time in your life. Right.
Some people replay Link's Awakening once a year. Not like a link between. I keep wanting to say world. A link to the past. A link to the past. Once a year, I play Streets of Rage 2 once a year minimum. Yeah. It is like very much my like go there and stop caring about shit thing. Like let it wash over me and consume me. And I know that makes me a very special case, an edge case. And also, I think again they've made a very good beat 'em up. I think the characters all control really interestingly. I really like it. That part of it a lot. So shout outs to that. The last thing I want to shout out. I'm in the middle of it, so I'll probably wrap back around next week. But The Flower Collectors is a game that's taken me by surprise. It's by a group called Mipumi Games. I think I want to say Austrian. And it is like the pitch that I basically got for it was it's Rear Window, the game. You are playing an ex-cop who is in a wheelchair. You're confined to your apartment, not because you're in a wheelchair, but because you're the sort of person who... So let me just give you the actual straight pitch here, which is like what it is and why it surprised me, and then why I think it's probably better than just a Rear Window game. And you know what? That's unfair because Rear Window is great.
Yeah, I don't wanna, what could be better than a Rear Window game?
Well, Rob, what if Rear Window was set in Barcelona in 1977, just after Franco fell, and you were playing a member of the Policia who had quit, or who had not quit, who had I guess quit after having an accident that put him in a wheelchair and caused this like whatever his, I don't know. Listen, he was a shitty fascist cop, right? And is very much this like hyper masculine asshole who thinks of himself as his body and his strength and is an asshole. and now from his balcony has seen the killing of someone who seems to be caught up in a dissident group, a leftist group in 1970s Barcelona, and is now working with a young anarchist journalist to try to uncover the truth of the story. Also, they're all furries. I left out this part. They're all furries.
Oh, wait, hang on. Actually, I need to back up one thing.
Yes.
What?
Are they all furries? Like, oh yeah, it's Barcelona 1977, and we're all furries. Like, we mean the word. Or is it Animal World Barcelona?
It's Animal World. They're not all furries. Okay. They're all anthropomorphized animals.
Everyone's in a first.
Okay.
There's a moment here where I'm like, the game opens with a text crawl or like a text on screen that's like 1977 Barcelona. Franco's just fallen. You know, there's the first breath of freedom in Spain in X years. And then 12 minutes or 12 seconds later, I'm looking at a photo of my own character and his partner, the fascist cops who are dog people in the bedroom. I'm like, what is happening? Where am I? What is?
So it's a gritty period crime story.
It's a noir. It's a crime noir.
Zootopia.
Meets Zootopia. Wait a second. Isn't that just Zootopia? I haven't seen Zootopia. Here's what I'll say it hasn't done any of that I do know Zootopia does, but I haven't seen it. So this is not my critique of Zootopia, but it does not do there are predators and there are prey. Animals are...
Well, yeah.
You know what I mean? It doesn't do that part of it, which is not just a Zootopia problem. That's a common thing inside of anthropomorphized animal shit. But what it does do is give you a camera and binoculars and a balcony to like investigate stuff from, take photos. There is no, again, this is not a systems driven game. This is a first person story game. But it's really fucking good so far. Having this dude get chewed out by this cool young anarchist journalist is sick. She slaps. Piecing together the ways in which this is tied to some sort of political conspiracy is exactly my shit. Having this dude have to confront his own history as being a police officer in a fascist regime is really, really interesting. It was written, it absolutely brought on the help of disability consultants and wheelchair consultants specifically for this character. I don't know that it's hitting that out of the park, but it does feel like they've done the work and that it is it is not framing. So again, one of the things I said before was it's the reason that he's stuck upstairs in his apartment is not because he's in a wheelchair. It's because he specifically refuses to go into public. It's because he refuses to like use the elevator that is in his building because he is caught up on his own issues of identity and manhood and what it means to be a good man in society because he has grown up in a truly regressive, backwards, terrible society. But also, of course, he's the sort of dude who is they're very much doing the thing that happens in this style of gruff neo-noir, where it's like, in his heart of hearts, he knows that the world should be better, but he's doing the paternalistic thing of being like, you kids don't know that the world isn't ready for you to be out there like this. This is how you're going to get hurt, which is a tired mode in some ways, but the game knows it's tired. The game is not on his side when he says that shit, and it's still an endearing mode because so much noir fiction plays with that trope a lot. I'm really, really, really liking it. You had me at Rear Window Game, and then to put on top of it, like explicitly leftist politics, cool animal people, and honestly, a really great look. Like, I don't know if y'all have looked at the trailer for this yet, but it has such a sharp, like, use of color. We talked about Cloudpunk having a sense of like the city before. This is just one street corner, but it's an incredible street corner. There's like a cabaret off to one side, a cafe on the other, a church down the street. You kind of get that feeling, the Rear Window thing of getting to know who. Okay, this is the way the priest is. This is like the lady across the way who has a crush on me. Here is like the woman who runs the cabaret and who wants to take care of her people, but is also knows that she has to deal with the police sometimes. And like that sort of like single corner world building is so good. It's called The Flower Collectors, and I think it's on Steam for $20. definitely worth looking at. Again, I haven't finished it yet. I'm into like the 3rd chapter or something like that. And that is like on my docket to finish this weekend. I'm so excited to get to the rest of it. So yeah, that's the Flower Collectors. I think that's probably it. We can wrap back around on some Valorant stuff on Monday probably. Because I know Cado, you've been playing, I've been playing. But we've already gone pretty deep on stuff this week. A lot of games out of nowhere. I had a lot to talk about. So thank you for humoring me as I go down my Steam list. God, this isn't. I'm not even talking about that. I'm continuing to play some Final Fantasy stuff, and we'll get around to that too eventually, I'm sure. What else? Is that it? Y'all done? Y'all feel like we've done a podcast? Y'all feel like we've made it out of a week?
That's a pod.
That's a pod. Sometimes you finish a podcast and you go, that's a podcast. I hope everyone has a good weekend. I hope everyone stays safe as always. As always, you can write in questions. We didn't get to them today, but maybe next week we'll get to some. gaming@vice.com is the address for that. You can follow me on Twitter at Austin_Walker. Where can people find you, Cado?
At A_Cado_appears.
And Rob.
At Rob Zachney.
As always, you can find everything we do at waypoint.vice.com, twitter.com/waypoint. Shout outs to Bowen for letting us use the track Miss You of the EP Pale Machine. Find out more about that at waypoint.zone/BOEN. And also at waypoint.zone, you can find a Gears Tactics review from Rob. You can find an XCOM Chimera Squad review from Rob. You can find a Fallout 76 review from Matt Galt that has a hell of a headline. This is a fucking swing of a headline. This is Wastelanders makes Fallout 76 the best Fallout Bethesda has made, which you got to go read that review. That's the sort of headline you go, I got to read this. I got to see what.
No.
And it starts by saying the Wastelanders update, the deck is the Wastelanders update elevates the gorgeous and moody RPG from complete trash to something worthy of the series' origins. Galt really loves this thing, huh?
Sometimes you just gotta let people go. Just gotta let the leash out.
You gotta let them go. You gotta let them run free, Matt Galt.
This was one of the, like a week ago. He was like, "Dude, like this is seriously terrific," and I was like, "Get out of here, this slate pitch ass take on this game."
Wow.
And like he came back and made the case. I think it's interesting. He comes to it from the place of not really liking a lot of what Bethesda's done with the series, which is definitely a perspective that's common to a certain type of Fallout fan. So it's interesting. I think a lot of people love Fallout 3 to death. In particular, like that game.
I thought you were saying in particular Patrick Klepek. I was like, he's not here, Rob. He can't defend himself.
Yeah, but you know what I mean.
I do.
Like, I think there's people who are like, that game
was the best it's gotten. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And then there's a type of Fallout fan that's like, actually, Bethesda's never really known what to do with this series. And they've never actually known what to do with a narrative RPG, period.
Right.
And I think that's kind of where Galt is coming to from this. What's interesting is that Wastelanders, in his view, is aware of that. Like, the game feels like a sort of long overdue reconsideration of like, hey, how are we making these RPGs? Like, how has the RPG narrative side of Bethesda games been going lately? And the answer is not well. And Wastelanders is trying to address that, which is interesting.
Yeah,
that sounds good. Yeah,
given that there were no NPCs at all or much of a like through line to that game to begin with, right?
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Like, that's the game that ends up doing that is kind of amazing.
Yeah, I mean, the case he makes is partly that it ends up being a really developed narrative of like labor struggle, which brings it from like the kind of background into the foreground, and that like having people in the world lets you tell an actual story instead of it just kind of being stuff that you have to try to reach and read. So it made me curious. It made me want to maybe dip back. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, like where I'm at, it's like, okay, I guess now I got to check this thing out.
Right.
Which I did not like after 2 hours of Fallout 76 when it came out. I did not feel the curiosity to continue going down that road.
No, I played it at launch. Did not like it. And you know me, I like bad stuff sometimes. All right. On that note, I hope that people have a good weekend. I hope that people come back next week to talk more about some video games with us. I did all the outro stuff already, so I can just say it. Fuck capitalism. go home. Peace.
All right.
I hope you're staying safe and healthy. In support of Sonic the Hedgehog, home entertainment release available on digital now and arrives to 4K Blu-ray on May 19th. We want to see if you'd be interested in receiving a custom 16-bit digital portrait of yourself and sharing it on your social channels and/or using it as your avatar for your social accounts. This is a custom piece, and all you need to do is provide us with a headshot photo. The photo can be shared by letting followers know Sonic is available for digital purchase, asking fans to comment on their favorite Sega game and using it as your avatar, etc.
I mean, Austin.
No.
If they're making you the offer.
I do. Do you want me to forward this to you?
Austin. No, because I do not have it in me to be Rob the Hedgehog. That shit doesn't work.
They're not going to make me a hedgehog. They're not going to make me a hedgehog. They're just going to do a 16-bit.
Oh, you'll just be like a fucking forest creature.
Yeah. No, I won't be a forest creature. They're just going to make a 16-bit me. They're just going to digitize a photo.
Well, that's got nothing. No, because no, the only person in that story is the fucking Robotnik dude.
Oh, also that guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
In the movie, no.
There's lots of humans.
There's a lot
That's
of
the story of that movie.
They want you to promote this shit by just like they're basically going to take a picture of you and run it through a fucking filter.
Well, I'm sure they're going to hand it to a 16-bit digital artist.
Yeah.
Who is going to work.
Those filters don't really work that well. You got to do that by
They might, but also who knows? Maybe
there's
they will.
an amount of cartooning that goes into this. Like, it's a whole thing.
I hate this. Anyway, that's it. I'm done. Bye. I'm going to go eat lunch.
Austin the Hedgehog, though.
Austin the Hedgehog exists. He has a Harry Potter lightning scar.
What?
I know a lot about my hedgehog. Do you?
Excuse me?
Austin the Hedgehog is like, if you search for Austin the Hedgehog, I've seen this like so many times now because I've been on the internet for so long that I know this hedgehog that I'm about to send you intimately. I know, for instance, without having to look it up, that he has his grandfather's shoes, I want to say. His great-great-grandfather, F-A-U-T-H-E-R, the legendary boots worn by his great-great GR8 grandfather that was the most fast hedgehog in the whole world and faster than Sonic the Hedgehog.
Wow.
He has on like a trench coat with a patch of, I'm going to say that's supposed to be the Union
Lord.
Jack. This patch shows that he is from the United Kingdom and he is British. Jacket worn by his father and passed down to him when he was 4 years old. Birthmark represents he is the king of lightning, and he was born in the lightning village in Great Mobius, Grate Mobius. A lot of spikes for protection from flying enemies. That's Austin the Hedgehog.
That's why hedgehogs have those.
That's why they got them.
From flying enemies.
That's canon. So yes, don't ask me about Austin the Hedgehog unless you're ready to come prepared for me to have answers.
Oh, good.
I know Austin the Hedgehog.
Ricardo the Hedgehog is a shadow variant. Looks like. Great.
Oh, that makes sense. There's probably there's no Cado the Hedgehog, presumably.
I doubt it.
No, not yet.
It's not a real name.
Oh, that Ricardo. Yeah, that Ricardo is just a shadow.
That's a shadow. That's a shadow.
Well, the thing that's wild to me is there are 3 of them here. And all 3 of them are Ricardo or are shadow variants.
Yeah.
Different shadow variants.
Different shadow variants. That middle one's kind of cool.
The middle one's cool. Yeah. The middle one looks like a Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta.
Yeah.
So that's good. Rob the Hedgehog. I don't know why we gotta rob these hedgehogs.
I don't think that's real.
Rob the Hedgehog has a
Rob
bow and arrow. Wait, this is
Rob
Rob is canon.
That's
Rob is official. Super official.
Comics.
Damn, even my super official hedgehog's super official. King Robert O'Hedge, you're a king, a captain and a king. All hail Captain King Robert O'Hedge. That's you. Amazing. You're the cousin of Amy Rose and the leader of the Mercian freedom fighters. You reside in Deerwood Forest, outside the Kingdom of Mercia, and you spent most of your adolescence combating the rule of Ivo Robotnik's sub-boss, the High Sheriff. Interesting. You were.
Could this be an illusion?
It could be. It could be. King. Also, you're a king. How did you go from being an outlaw to a king? These are the stories. You got to read the Archie comics, Sonic the Hedgehog stories. Yeah, exactly.
This is how they make the franchise.
This is only pseudo-canon, because this character only exists within the pre-Super Genesis Wave continuity.
Well, that's still more canon than me. I just exist in someone named Austin, a British kid's mind. It is believed that Rob does have a brother, but he has not been seen or mentioned. The only hint of his possible existence is when Scourge said that Anti-Rob was killed by his brother.
That seems pretty straight. Like, you got an anti-Rob.
You got an anti-Rob.
What's Rob supposed to do with that?
What the fuck is Rob supposed to do with that? What are you supposed to do with that?
Oh, it's your brother, Anti-Rob. Oh, by the way, only one of you can be king. Okay, well, let me figure out what to do here.
I play Crusader Kings. Listen.
Anti-Rob. Let's go for a drive.
Oh, incredible.
Hey, Anti-Rob, I got a coat for you. Come on in here. No, come on, just a little further. A little further.
The thing that's amazing about it is that because there's an Anti-Rob, because there's a Rob the Hedgehog, Robo Hedge, aka sometimes people just write Rob-O. Some people seem to have misunderstood that it's Rob of the Hedge, and they've just written Rob-O as if Rob-O is first name, middle initial, or middle name. Love it. Anyway, there's a lot of Rob of the Hedge, regular art, real art, real art, canonical Archie Comics art, and also mixed in here are other Robs, though, and that is a lot. This one has lava veins. I don't like this one very much at all. This one is doing a flex.
Oh, I don't like this.
And it has... Rob the Hedgehog is a fairly normal hedgehog with one minor exception. His blood is flammable. He walks around with a high fever, which he takes very special medicine for and has to be constantly monitored. Oh, this is wild. So that if he hurts himself, is on standby with a bucket of water so that things don't go out of control. Rob is generally fairly polite and friendly and loves playing with toy trucks in his little area called Rob's Sick Bay.
I can't.
On rare occasions, Rob will require a special breathing. No. This is really sweet, actually. This is an adorable, good hedgehog. Shout outs to Rob the Hedgehog and Rob's Sick Bay and Rob, I thought this was going to go like he has lava blood and that makes him immortal. But no, This is actually very clearly someone's OC about themselves or someone they care about who's sick and fucking rips. This rules.
Yeah.
Shout outs to Rob the Hedgehog. Shout outs to Rob the Hedgehog everywhere. All right.
And to all a good night.
And also, on that note, I'm going to go eat lunch.
Yeah.
Oh, I'd wait. Here we go. We'll just post this one, also from the same artist, Mighty Ray on DeviantArt. Here is Ray from Chaotix, Sonic and Knuckles present Chaotix, talking to Marcus Phoenix. Love it. Incredible.
Hey, where's your neck, Marcus?
Oh, it links out to this incredible post that includes the most disbelieving whatever the name of this character is. I always forget the name of this Sonic character. Ray from Sonic the Hedgehog. Ray the Flying Squirrel, not from Chaotix, from the Sonic Mania. That's where it's from. Yeah. Just utter disbelief, skepticism, just nothing. Shout outs to at Mighty Raylin here for these incredible fan arts of Sonic characters talking to Gears of War characters. Love it. All right. Now
it's like Ray Lynn, not like Raylan Givens.
Not Raylan Givens from Just
This is what he's doing in the scenes when the camera's not on. Right?
No.
Where it's like
incredible.
Raylan engineers another officer involved shooting and then goes out and Nick Searcy's like, damn it, Raylan, you're out of control. He's like, I am. And then he goes home and he creates his OCs and starts uploading them.
Unbelievable. Also, real quick, I just want to shout, now that we've said this, we should I'm gonna go back in time and shout out Colin Space Twinks, The Pious World of Christian Sonic the Hedgehog fan art that ran in the New York Magazine a few months ago. That was really fantastic. And shout outs to Colin, who is a friend of the show by nature of just being a good person on Twitter who I like to follow. Yeah. Let's go read that piece. That piece was great. All right. I'm gonna go eat lunch. Bye.
See ya.
Later.
Okay. We should time.is. Love to time.is. Love to go to a website. Got a great email here from someone presumably from some PR firm. How can atheists monetize their video content?
What?
And it starts, since you cover sports passionately.
Mina.
I misread. It's athletes. It's athletes. It's not atheists.
God.
That doesn't make any sense.
Like, since you cover sports, you must be a heathen.
Sorry. To be fair, she misspelled athletes.
Okay.
It's athletes. It's athletes, and that just sent my brain into like a correction. You know what I mean? It's like one of those things you're like, okay, well, that's not a word.
You can believe it. There's women playing sports. These athletes are wowing crowds across the nation as they play men's baseball, but with ladies.
God, I love Tom Hanks. I love the League of Our Own. Right?
Dry those tears, honey.
All right. Now I can time this. International Jazz Day.
Oh, hell yeah.
Tough time to be an international jazzist.
Not a lot of international.
International Jazz Day 2020 to take place virtually. Global concert hosted by Herbie Hancock to feature performances by artists across the globe.
Is that like a sibling or uncle of Territory Jazz?
Yeah, yeah, international jazz, yeah, International Jazz Junior.
I don't approve of the fact that our government observed International Jazz Day by killing Ellis Marsalis.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. God. All right, 55.
Yeah.
I almost missed it. I gave us way more time than I normally do, and it gave me enough time for my mind to wander. So, there's a problem. We're 310, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.